Okay, so hey everybody, welcome to an interview here where I'm here with Stephen Moore of Post Death Soundtrack, which is a band that hopefully you know if you've been following the website. We did an interview a few months ago, and due to some technical difficulties and life, it never went out there. And before we put it out, we decided, hey, it's better to get a fresh one on the books instead. So that's what we're doing here. We're getting a fresh interview out there. And let's start with Steve. Who are you? Who's Stephen Moore?
I am. Well, that's a big question. The main thing I do is largely music. Got into music like a lot of people at a young age, and it seemed to me, obviously there's other forms where you can completely have freedom of expression. For me, it struck me as a place where it's a safe space to say absolutely anything you want. So that inspired me, and since age 13 or 14, I have been writing and tinkering and learning and trying, and been involved in a bunch of bands over the years. Inner Surge, The Unraveling, Post Death Soundtrack, some collaborations. Post Death Soundtrack is the most active current one. And other than that, I run a music marketing company called Independent Music Promotions. And that's about all, just learning and growing as I go.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, folks know me. I mean, I know you. Folks know me from my website, but I know you from originally from Independent Music Promotions. We've been working together on, just checking out artists and stuff for years now. And we've, for full disclosure, we become pretty good friends.
Yeah,
and I've gotten a chance to, really get to know your music and a little more about you. And I really want to get a chance to share a little bit about you. But let's start with Post Death Soundtrack, since they're your most active band right now. What obviously folks that are checking this out will hear the music because we're going to intro this with some of your music, and they'll be checking that out. But if you had to give the elevator pitch of what is Post Death Soundtrack, what's the sound? What's it like? What's kind of the vibe? How would you describe that?
I would say Post Death Soundtrack is uncensored music in the spirit of a mixture of the heavier 90s movement. So Nirvana, Alice in Chains, Stone Temple Pilots, Soundgarden, moving on to Tool, Nine Inch Nails, and then also jumping into today's modern doom metal, sludge metal, hardcore punk, and thrash is in there as well. I decided to basically take all those influences and that I love, create a singular sound, mash them together as best as I can. And the music is lyrically, it's informed by a mixture of philosophy, spirituality, Zen, and absurdity. Like looking at, say, Syd Barrett's lyrics are often about just placing words that could be backwards and they make you feel a certain way. But it's essentially it's heavy music, raw and unfiltered.
I think that's a good description. The things that jump out to me immediately when I listen to your music is a very 90s grunge influence for sure. And I'm glad you said you brought up the doom and sludge, because that's the other thing. I always feel like there's a nice sludginess to your sound that I don't feel like I personally get enough of in my modern music diet. So I do appreciate getting some sludge out there. I'm a punk rocker born and bred. That's kind of where I come from. And on the harder side of music, I generally used to, through my life veered more towards hardcore than metal. But I've always appreciated bands that can kind of meld that. One of my favorite bands of all time is Motorhead, and they're that metal band that the punks love.
Me too.
You know what I mean? Yeah. It was always that band where the punks and the metalheads could get along. Everybody thought Lemmy was God, and they were right.
Exactly. And I've been in bands in the past that lean more towards the hardcore, and especially, sooner after I discovered New Noise and Refused and all of that. And it is something that's definitely in my music. There's going to be more of that coming out. But yeah, it's tough to fit it all in a can of worms, fit in one more worm. Yeah.
Definitely. So one of the things I on the top, I mentioned that, like, due to some technical difficulties, our interview didn't get up. One of those technical difficulties was me, and so, and specifically, like, I've been going through, and I'm coming out of kind of a stronger bout of anxiety in my life. And I know we've bonded over that a little bit, anxiety, mental health and stuff. Do you feel like music is one of your big outlets to get through your anxiety and your mental health problems?
It's the best outlet, actually, because I've explored plenty of different avenues as far as mental health, and that is 100% to be encouraged. I think people should explore as much as possible and what they think they need. That being said, I believe that music has been the best because really, music is a space. As long as you're listening to the right music for you, it's a space where you're not feeling condescended. You're feeling accepted, and then on the upside of that, you're likely feeling inspired. So when you hear the right music, even for example, someone who has depression listening to depressive music, say like Alice in Chains' Dirt, extremely depressive album by all accounts. But there's something for someone who has experienced depression like myself. It's actually very liberating to listen to, because you think, wow, like this guy's really, he's got guts. He's really heroic. So that's where I think music comes in, whereas other avenues can have sort of scripts, and they're trying to lead you to a certain space, and they want to do so carefully and all that, whereas music can just tell you raw, and
I always love the quote
works.
Bob Marley, when the one good thing about music is when it hits you, you feel no pain, right?
Yeah,
Boom.
and Dead Prez used that quote on
Oh yeah.
on hip hop. Love that band too. Yeah.
Oh no, that hip hop is last year on the website I did a 50 songs for 50 years of hip hop, and of course Hip Hop by Dead Prez was on there, because why right? I mean, it has to be.
Yeah.
So yeah, so for me, I definitely think music has always been one of my escapes, and I do find, it's an interesting thing. I realized this not too long ago, when I was kind of pushing through some anxiety and some garbage, that I spend a lot of the time that I'm driving listening to podcasts, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I realized that I wasn't listening to enough music for me,
Mhm.
right? Like I had to like consciously be like, oh, I need to spend some of this time with music, because it's like soothing. It's like, it is soothing for my soul in some way, and now that I've kind of restruck a balance, I think that helps me with my balance of life as well. Like, so I still listen to my podcast, but instead of listening to podcasts 24/7 when I'm in the car, I spend a lot of time with my music as well. And and that has really helped me. And I mean, it's not a bad time. We've bonded over old school hip hop. I'm a old school guy, but my son has gotten me into a lot of modern hip hop, and
I mentioned that too.
Yeah,
I'm sure we chatted about that.
in the last like month or so, Tyler dropped his new one, and Gene Dawson dropped a new one, which is not really as much hip hop, but the album is so dope. And I find myself like starting to really vibe with a lot of modern artists through like learning it through the new generation, through my son, who's also a rapper, as you know.
Mhm.
And he actually turned 16 this week. So yeah, he's very, very excited about that. He's gonna get his driving permit, so everybody clear the roads if you're in Pennsylvania. But yeah, so but yeah, I mean, like, I find, like, whether it be my familiar old school hip hop, a new song by Tyler, or it be crazy metal, or it be, you know, the emo and punk that I grew up on, or, you know, revisiting some old goofy ska songs, you know, like no matter what, like music is such an important part for my life as well. So I think that's largely how you and I bonded, is that like there's this love for independent music and music that's made for the love of music, not for corporate sludge and grime and all that, because I find that there is a big difference for me. Like don't get me wrong, there are big, huge mainstream artists that I absolutely adore, but there's a lot of corporate music that feels corporate, right? You know? And I think that's part of the thing I love about having met you through your independent music promotion, is that it's not that. It's never that corporate crap. It's people who love music, even if it's not music that's my style. You know, you know, you do a lot of work with like Americana artists, and like I like a lot of them, but I don't know that I would have ever checked most of them out if it weren't for you sending them over to me to check out, because that's not my genre generally. But there's something about, even when you're listening to a genre that's not your favorite thing, that when the person loves it, you feel it.
Yeah, for me, it's largely about connecting to them as a fellow artist and a human, and just seeing if I can be helpful is the main thing. If they're good at what they do, and if I feel like they genuinely, you know, enjoy what they do, mean what they say, and then genre is kind of in the wash at that point.
Yeah.
It's a secondary thing. It's like,
and I think the more,
good. Yeah.
When I was so I'm a pastor's kid. I think we've shared this before, maybe, and publicly. If people follow my website, I'm sure they've heard me say it 1,000 times in different interviews. But I'm a pastor's kid, and I'll never forget one of the organists who was our music director when I was young said to me, "The more you like music, the more music you like." And I think that's true, because I feel like as I fall more and more in love with music in general, I find myself loving more types of music and more styles and more, like, okay, am I going to listen to a lot of classical? Probably not. But are there going to be classical pieces that really move me? Yeah, of course there are. And like, you know, I never, when I was young, would have ever thought that I'd be listening to, you know, big band jazz and avant-garde jazz. And I do, you know, now that I'm in my 40s, like I love some of that stuff, you know, and, you know, and for you, you know, especially with the latest post-death album, like it feels like there's such a wide variety of influence in your sound. And, you know, you already hit on some of that, but like, who are some of your favorite artists of all time?
Well, some of my favorite artists would be Nirvana, Alice in Chains, Tool, the Beatles are huge for me. Gucci Mane, I listen to him almost every day.
Yeah. What is it about
like
Gucci that hits you?
What I like about Gucci Mane is that he has no fear. He carved his own lane out of practically nothing, and he doesn't let anybody mess around with him at all, even for a second. And beyond that, he's more prolific than almost any other artist who's existed. He has well over 100 albums and mixtapes, and he also has his own swagger that and personality that he's almost the Joker of rap, and he's proven it. Like he's unique as hell. I read his book.
He's from Atlanta, right?
Yeah.
So like one of my good buddies who I used to do a podcast with, then he got all, you know, he got married and adopted his daughter, and now he's all busy with life. He can't do podcasts with me anymore. Yeah. But he's from Atlanta, and I used to help out with a film festival he did and stuff down there. But he's gotten me into Atlanta as an area is funny in that even like your grandma listens to hip hop, right? Like hip hop is such a part of Atlanta culture that like it don't matter if you're black, white, red, brown, you know, Asian, don't matter. You're into hip hop. It just is a thing. And he got me into Gucci some years ago. Like I wouldn't necessarily call Gucci one of my top artists, but like I've never listened to something by Gucci that didn't impress me, or like I never felt like the need to switch the song. You know what I mean? It's always like I enjoy it.
And with an artist with such a massive discography, it's almost like when trying to get somebody into Tom Waits, it's like unless they really want to like, you know, dive in, it's like okay, maybe start with Bone Machine, and then you know it's very difficult. And with Gucci, it's almost like I don't know. I just felt like I was going into a bit of a private world when I was going through all of this stuff, and I really needed that energy to like sort of stand up for myself at the time. And now I just love it. You know, I love tapping into it. You know?
That's awesome, man. And like it's cool like to be able to meet other people who like every kind of music, because I think there's a lot of folks who kind of have their niche. And don't get me wrong, I still have a niche. Like you know, if you were to ask my wife, what does Justin listen to? She'd be like, oh, old school hip hop and punk rap. Yeah, because that's what I love. But at the same time, like I've always liked everything as well. And I think that's awesome. Like I brought up the album that came out recently, the new Gene Dawson album. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with Gene Dawson, but Gene Dawson is one of those this new wave of hip hop guys that grew up in the early 2000s, like emo punk scene. So like they love other styles of music and want to do other styles of music. So like his last album was straight up almost entirely like a power pop and punk rock album.
Yeah.
And like this new one is very R&B influenced, but still has a lot of cool like early 2000s, late 90s rock influence. And it's cool to me because I feel like one of my favorite artists, he's become one of my favorite artists of all time, but like I got into him in the last 10 years is Kid Cudi. I'm a huge Kid Cudi fan.
Yeah, he's great. And,
like the way he infuses like his love of grunge music with his love of, you know, old school hip hop with the modern guys, because he'll do these trap songs and then next thing you'll know, he'll be doing this like hard rock banger and you're like, what is going on? And but he has a way of it all still being him. And like I love that. Like I don't know, like it feels like we're in a period of time where there's a lot of people who are not interested in the being pegged in a genre. And I like that because I feel like the least I can peg you in a genre, the more I'm probably going to like you.
Yeah. The only thing I would add to that is like say with Veillift or anything like that's actually because our early stuff was like a bag of tricks. And like, I'm not trying to be like, you know, like there's a lot, like I'm proud of it and everything, but you know, there were a few like tracks that like kind of took you out of the albums and you know, being a little too all over the place. Whereas I think it's important that because what I was getting to there's like I listened to like John Coltrane and Louis Armstrong and like, you know, big band jazz, old like Tupac, but those influences don't get into my music so much because I think it's critical to like learn what you're good at, like say Scott Weiland did. Yeah.
Hey, so sorry, my son's here, but I wanted to introduce him to you because you've been listening to his music. So while we're here, hey, this is my friend. This is my buddy who's been listening to your music.
Hey, Weston, how you doing?
This is Cash.
Oh, sorry, Cash.
This is the one whose music you've actually been checking out.
Yeah, it's awesome. I checked out several tracks. Yeah. I love the hardcore stuff, especially. That's why I chose Finale, I believe it was.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, he was so excited because whoop! I just dropped my computer. He's so excited because that's actually one of his absolute favorite albums, songs on that album, and the fact that you picked that to like say that was one of your favorite songs made him really excited. So
I like the Cash Hendricks name too.
Yeah, well, we did a good job naming him.
Yep, that's my actual name.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
then it's the best name you can go with. Then, but it also sounds like a great stage name too.
it really does. I know. I always said to him when he was little that if he didn't grow up to be a rock star, then I failed.
Yeah. Oh, that's a lot of pressure, but it's fine. You can do it.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt our interview, but my son was saying hi, and I figured I'd introduce him to you.
Oh no, that's great. Yeah.
But I'll take this moment for a quick segue and say, so we kicked off this interview for people who are watching with my favorite track, Low Down Animal. I want you to pick a track right now. So we're going to take a little pause and people are going to listen to one of your tracks. What song is it going to be?
The Die Is Cast, I would say.
And all right, y'all, listen to Die Is Cast and we'll be right back. So we're back. Steven, man. So I've talked to you a little bit about how my life has been a little crazy, as a lot of people here in America has been lately with the elections. How does that affect you guys up there in Canada?
Well, it has a big effect because, just like with the whole Jim Jones situation, we get the Kool-Aid passed over here too. Sure. And that's been happening. Been happening in pretty big ways, actually. Mm-hmm. The whole everything from the conservative base and as far as conspiracy theories all over the world have been on the rise. Here we had like almost an impersonation of the January 6th insurrection with the trucker movement. And
I forgot about that. Yeah, you guys had that weird thing going on. Yeah,
it was pretty. Weird. I'm gonna stick with weird because I want to sort of be cautious with my words here. But yeah, sure. It was weird, and it was it was disruptive, and it definitely has a huge effect over here. I think the one positive thing that's going to come out of this is now that Trump's been elected, now you can move out to Calgary and we can hang out.
It may happen. It may happen. I mean, I do love my county out here just outside Philly did go blue, thank God. Although I don't exactly live in a blue town, I'll say that. But the thing is, business as usual politics. I don't care if you're red, blue, or independent or whatever, but this isn't business as usual. You know what I mean, right? I mean, like
Yeah.
Trump is a
Big
whole
sweeping
other
changes.
world. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's I would be lying if I said that I wasn't a little bit scared. But at the same time, I'm also I talked about how my anxiety had been bad lately and going into this election. And now the election's over, even though the worst possible outcome is what we got. I do actually feel a little less anxious about it because now at least I can start to prepare, start to move forward in some way. And like for me, like I've used it as like a regrouping on the creative stuff I do and trying to get some more voices of color and some more voices, LGBTQ voices and stuff on my website. And and people who are watching this within the next few weeks, you're going to start seeing some new writers pop up. We have some new people who are interested in getting involved with writing about different things. And, we'll probably have a little bit more of a little bit less of a centrist, we're just reporting about arts and culture kind of point of view moving forward. We still will be doing that, but we're still we're very decidedly an organization that is not okay with the status quo of things that are going on. So I'm really excited to use this to at least push me into knowing that I have something to fight against and fight for. And sometimes, some of the best art comes from that. And I know that like some of my absolute favorite, I'm a horror geek, that.
Yeah.
Some of my favorite art comes from people fighting that status quo, George Romero, really changed the world when he did Night of the Living Dead. And he'll to the day he died, he said, well, I didn't really mean to make a political statement, but it was so ingrained in him that I don't think he might not have meant it, but he meant it. You know what I mean? Like in the back of his head, he meant it. He was trying to say something. And I'm hoping that at least this can be a period of time that hopefully we look back in the history books as, wow, we fucked up, but we really regrouped and fixed things. So I'm really hoping, I'm trying to be optimistic that that's where we're headed. That said, I don't want to spend too much time on that stuff, but I did hint at film a little bit, and you and I have been bonding over film lately. And, so I had asked you, what are some movies I should watch? And you asked me to watch 12 Monkeys. So why did you ask me to watch 12 Monkeys?
I was going through some of my past favorites and kind of reminding myself which ones like stood the test of time for me, and I still thought were like just fascinating movies, really, kind of like worth repeat watches. And 12 Monkeys was one of them that came up. Like the performances are so great, the plot is just like it's just warped, and Brad Pitt's character is really fun too. And I haven't seen it in years, but I know I've seen it probably 6 or 7 times at least. So that's one that I go back to quite a bit.
Yeah, and so I did watch it in preparation of our chat, and I will say that's a mindfuck movie for sure. And I definitely need to watch it probably a couple more times before I can fully wrap my mind around it. But I will say it's good, and like a Terry Gilliam film, it has that dream like it is Terry Gilliam, and all his films for the most part have this dream quality to them. And like it's something about his filming style is just so beautiful and so interesting that like there's always things going on in every corner of every shot. And I actually had to stop and rewind because I was like, I don't remember what it was, but there was something going on in the corner of the scene when they were in the nut house at one point. Yeah, and everybody's kind of going crazy, and there's just somebody going on in the corner. I was like, what is that guy doing? I keep fast forwarding, and it's like I found it to be so rich and so thematically rich, even though I can't even identify all the themes yet, because I feel like there's so much going on in that movie. But yeah, like, you're right. The performances. So like that's Bruce Willis in the heyday of Bruce Willis, right?
Yeah.
So if you watch Bruce Willis in the last 10 to 15 years, it's not the same thing. But you watch Bruce Willis in those 90s, like where he is just on his game. That man, as far as people in that genre world of action and sci-fi, there are few who are better than him. He's just so good at it.
And the theme of like the themes of the tone of the movie is so serious that like he has like zero sense of humor. There's like,
oh yeah,
I mean the bit of comedy relief comes from Brad Pitt being so wackadoo, you know?
Right. And what's funny about him is even he's playing it straight. The comedy is just from how crazy he legitimately is.
Yeah.
He's just a legitimately crazy dude, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, without, I guess the moratorium's over. I could spoil it, but in the fair sense of people who haven't seen it, I don't want to spoil it too much, but it's so crazy to find out, like, we've spent all this time following this guy and he's actually not important. Like, is actually something crazier going on, right?
Yeah.
And I kind of love that, because I feel like in our world, like, we're always fixated on stuff, and so many times we're fixated on the wrong things, right? So they are so fixated on Brad Pitt's character and what's going to happen with him that they're missing that there's something way bigger happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that really, really interesting. And like I said, it'll take me 2 or 3 more watches before I could really like put my thoughts down and like get it, because it's one of those movies. But man, for as little as we've talked about movies in general, you got my taste pegged pretty well. I gotta say, you picked one that really does vibe with where I'm at. Maybe you just know that I'm a crazy motherfucker. So,
well, the other one I chose for you was Falling Down.
Right, and I have not seen that. And it's crazy that I haven't seen that.
Yeah,
people have yelled at me many times for not having seen that movie, but I am very excited. I mean, I've always been told it's kind of another man hits his breaking point, like Taxi Driver, like those kind of movies, and you know, I like that. So I am intrigued to see how that plays out. So that'll be my next one.
It's less complex, definitely, than both 12 Monkeys, and less complex than Taxi Driver. Like Taxi Driver has a lot of nuance and sort of like how the tale unwinds. Falling Down, a little more straightforward, but it's basically just it's Michael Douglas's performance, and that makes it, you know, gripping.
So like, being a music guy, do you find yourself really tuned into the music when you watch films?
A little bit of both. I tend to notice music wherever I'm at. Like,
sure,
you know, I try not to notice it when I'm at the supermarket or things like that. But
you can't help it, right?
Yeah, I can't help it. With films, I guess I do. I tune into music, but not in a like a distracted way. I tend to focus on, you know, the main character, what's happening, and just if it's good, get lost in it. Like, you know, we talked about before that Taxi Driver is another big one for me that has inspired some art and everything. And Lord of the Rings, I know it's like a favorite of most people, but for me, it comes into my writing, even though I don't write about it like literally or lyrically, but
sure.
I'm often writing about, you know, some of the final scenes, or, you know, like some of the moral, well, not moral, but like some of the defiance and sort of acts of heroism. Yeah, definitely come into my writing. So it's sort of interconnected.
Yeah. And sometime probably in the new year, we talked about you and me starting a podcast together as well. So that's probably something that's going to happen. But something you just said made me think of something we'll have to touch on, because I talked about how we're going to essentially make each other watch movies. You're going to pick a movie. I'm going to pick a movie. We're going to talk about music too, because we can't not. But that said, would you believe I've only ever seen the first, of the Lord of the Rings movies because I really didn't like it, and I never went on to the others.
Oh wow! Now, theatrical version is a sin, so you have to watch the extended versions to get the full.
So my problem is I watched the extended version of the first one, and it's the only thing I've ever seen. But
Yeah.
I started it around 2 a.m., and it was probably a bad idea.
Oh,
And
okay. Yeah.
I was the only sober person in a house of very, very drunk friends. And they were all so mad at me because all I did was make jokes the whole time.
Yeah.
So I will admit that I never gave the film a fair shot. But we'll have to get there. We'll have to get there. That will have to be something we do.
Oh yeah, like the whole 12-hour because it gets better even as you go along, and there's scenes and creatures that represent like I mean I'll even have moments in life where I'll relate, like say a trauma happening or someone flaking out on like say like whether it's a music project or like the feeling of going to battle, and I'd be like, and I'd think like Aragorn wouldn't do that shit, or like there's this what I'm not gonna get that there's a scene where the mouth of Sauron comes out from the Black Gate, and he's just like spewing the most like bile type things out of his mouth, and extremely rude fellow, and it's possibly the greatest scene. It's like one of the greatest scenes ever. I mean, you really but you have to persevere to get this. You got to do it. You got to do it.
I will get there. I mean, it's funny. It's not as if I don't like the genre, because there's a lot of fantasy I do like. I'm a really, really big Harry Potter fan, despite the fact that I'm not a big fan of J.K. Rowling as a human being, but I do really love the world she created and the world that so many other people really brought to life for me.
She's gone off the rafters more over the past maybe 10, 15. Like, yeah. Sometimes as people get older, they just like, right. Just like, I'm just gonna let go now and go crazy. Yeah. Like,
well, and it's crazy too because all the people involved in the films have basically disavowed their relationship with her completely. They're all very like, this right. is stories about people persevering and standing with each other and love, and she can represent the opposite in her real life, which is crazy. But
it's about you can die on a hill, as the saying goes. Sure. But it's like choose one, choose a hill, and it's like if that's really like the one sticking point, if that's the hill that you want to die on, it's a little unusual, but wow. Yeah. Like do you think there'd be something like a little bit more critical to like choose your hill,
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. I'll definitely leave it at that at the moment, because I could go on for quite a long time about how I feel about her and how weird some of her decisions feel to me, based on her own writings that seem to contradict completely what she represents now. But that said, I want to spend a little time before we kind of start to wrap up this chat, which is probably going to be the first of, I expect, well, we're going to have a podcast together. So, I mean, we're definitely going to be talking a lot, but for your music, for your art, you mentioned that spirituality and faith are part of that. And I'm curious both where you came from as far as like your upbringing and kind of where you find yourself now.
Yeah. Well, where I came from, I mean, I grew up in I would say Catholic household, but it wasn't strict Catholic. It was mostly my dad who sort of carried that with him. Around age 13, 14, became depressed, moved on from that, especially after going to an Anglican private school, sort of getting my fill of that. And I started exploring so many other things, reading a bunch, eventually found meditation and yoga. Got into Siddha yoga for a long time. Made
If I can interrupt you just for a second, what is Siddha yoga?
Siddha yoga is essentially, it's similar to Hinduism, so it's basically basically oneness, yoga, and has its own lineage and everything. And over the years, delved into everything from Buddhism to Hinduism. Now it's essentially the same, but it's boiled down to Vedanta. So it's just simple oneness, and not so much dealing with it's just yogic philosophy. So not so much dealing with all the Hindu representations of divine energy or anything like that. But I was going to say between that and one thing that I also lean into, like not just for inspiration, but almost as like I think that we also create our own beliefs along the way. So I actually learn a lot and get inspired a lot by my own like strange life, I wouldn't necessarily always my own suffering, but my own experience, because sometimes truth is stranger than fiction, and
Sure.
when you look at it, it can be pretty miraculous, and that's where I'm happy to get my music from, and I continue to lean into that because that's kind of how you create your own. We're kind of creating our own world, anyways, our own perceptions. So I'm leaning into that more and more, and I think that's important. But that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll get into it more as I'm sure movies we talk about will get into this, and other things will get into this. But I identify as a believer in Jesus Christ, but I would definitely be considered a heretic by the vast majority of believers. In that I don't. Oh, there's a kitty cat.
No, Shenzi's bombing the call. Yeah,
hey, nothing wrong with that. And I find myself like in a very universalist mindset. A lot of times I have, for even when I was more ingrained in the church, I've never really was able to fully subscribe to the idea that Jesus is the way. I always kind of felt like Jesus is a way.
I feel the same. I feel the same way, like a universalist.
Yeah,
like it all fits and actually works together.
Yeah. So I mean, I know to some people that's certainly heresy, and I'm okay with being called a heretic. I've been called many worse things, and I always like to tell my friends who are in the Christian faith that every good reformer was called a heretic before they were called a reformer. So I'm just saying.
And you could say to them, well, I hope you get the help you need too.
Yeah, no doubt. But so I don't want to keep you much longer, but as we kind of wrap up, I do want to leave everybody with kind of your final thoughts as both somebody who promotes music and has made music your whole life. What are some tips you would give to somebody who really just wants to get into the world of music?
If you want to get into the world of music, there's practical things that you want to do, and that is don't listen to feedback from people who don't have the experience or who are not encouraging to you. If you want to do something different, and they try to advise you, oh, do something catchier, this is popular, this is that, don't do that. Just follow what you want to do first of all, because that's the only way that you're going to have something that you're really proud of. You want to follow the rest of the steps. Sending a message on the screen here because it's fun for cats. That's the paramount thing. Like any
be
artist,
real. It sounds like what you're trying to say is be real to yourself. Be real to your own artistic vision, not to what's going to sell, not to what people tell you is going to sell. Be real.
And don't worry about Spotify streams or expect getting signed right away. It's not going to happen. Or getting a boatload of cash right away, not going to happen. Focus on making something that you're proud enough about that you'd go to battle for, and then if you care about it that much, other people are going to care about it. That's the paramount thing. And also not trying to do everything, like I was saying earlier. It's good to, like you were saying, if there's a few genres that you truly love, and you can personally mash them together, filter them, that's an original sound. However, if you want the kitchen sink, and like, it's like it's good to, it's okay in life not to be like an every person or an everyman. It's fine to pick one thing and get really good at that, and like hone your voice, your craft. I think that's important.
I think that feels like really good advice. Because I know while I'm not trying to make music, I have 10,000, irons in different fires, and maybe I need to focus on 3 of them instead of 27 of them.
Well, some people are good at a lot of things. I say that almost to console myself because it's, well, I am good at a few things. Like, I give myself some credit, but one thing that helped me is, like, just over the years, I thought, okay, I think my voice is getting to where I like the range within. I think it sounds best within this range of music, and that's what I'm gonna continue to, like, expand and hone and all that. And so it's like, it's knowing my lane, and same thing with things like mental illness. It's like I can lean into that and talk about it, and have it as a strength, or just same thing with my writing style or style of anything. The more I lean into that, the more I'm going to be confident in it and get better. So yeah, that's what I meant. But I know people who can, build houses, and I can't, like, I can build a crooked cabinet. So yeah.
I fully understand. I'm in that very mid level of handy. I can do certain things, but I can't do other things. But it is, I think it's a good thing to understand your limitations, right? So, if I'm an artist and I know that I can do a specific thing well, but I can't do another thing well, I don't need to have to do that other thing. I can ask for help. I can get other people, right? I've been putting on film festivals for a couple of years now. I don't design the artwork, but I'm married to a graphic designer. So I have good artwork because I can say, hey, this is my idea. And she can then put it out and go, well, what about this? And I'm like, oh, and it blows me away because that's her gift, and we all are different. And I think that's important to understand. And I think that's a really good place to kind of wrap things up. So as we leave here, I'm going to leave everybody with one more song off the new album. What song should be, and I'm putting it on you again. So what song should people listen to as they are wrapping this up?
Let's go with Tide Turns Red.
Nice. It's a good one. I like that one quite a bit. So everybody, I hope you enjoyed our time here. I hope you enjoyed it enough that you're going to come back, because we're going to be talking more. There's no doubt about that. But check out Post Death Soundtrack. There's links all in here. If you're listening to it as a podcast, you can also watch it as a video over at the website, but it's available in both forms. And we thank you guys for checking it out.